Hesitate, please, 6. Okay, so 6, yeah, take a test. I was telling Amy a story the other day that when I worked for state education, the state education department, things were just, at points, just so silly there that a colleague of mine and I would often play bingo. We had like elaborate cards set up with all sorts of overused terms and weird gestures by people who work in that building. So this is not that game, but this is a kind of a bingo game because I know that in past conversations, there have been a lot of questions about a lot of the initiatives that are currently happening with our staff, to our staff, because of our staff, in spite of our staff, the whole gamut. So what I thought I would do is just spend a few moments on a couple of bingo squares each time that we get together so that we're a little clearer about the language and the terms that are being thrown around all the time. And I thought today I would just spend a couple minutes on teacher and principal evaluation column and just talk to you about two things, Robert Marzano himself and the word indicators. So Robert Marzano is the creator of the teacher evaluation rubric. And many would disparage him because he was only a classroom teacher for like 7 years or something like that, and has spent the rest of his time in a university setting. And I have no personal feelings for or against him. What I want to say is his teacher evaluation rubric is a set of behaviors that through research on research, he has discovered to hold to be the most effective teaching strategy.
Amy, they have the whole teacher evaluation thing in their packet this time.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, I think it says my thing each night too.
Oh, well, that's okay. So that's Robert Marzano. He's a researcher of researchers. He's not himself necessarily a researcher. He doesn't go into classrooms and study and do a lot of effectiveness studies of teachers and students themselves. He does the meta-analysis. So that's his deal. The only other thing I was going to talk about, and I don't want to steal Sue's thunder, is the word indicators. So the indicators, and you'll see it when Sue brings you through the rubric a little bit more, are essentially the behaviors. Those are the behaviors that are linked to effective teaching strategies that when you're in an evaluation situation, you are looking for from a teacher. Did they do it or didn't they do it? Was it called for or wasn't it called for? And if they did do it and it was called for, how well did they do it? If it wasn't called for, who cares? So that's the big term, indicators. And I just wanted to share with you one, because we all tend to think about what we think are like teacherly indicators. But there are some that are kind of interesting and a little bit different. And I wanted to find one. This one is extremely relevant, but it's not anything that we formally do or talk about a lot yet, but will soon because of the Common Core state standards. And it's indicator 21, organizing students for cognitively complex tasks, which is just like a big chunk of words right there. And the behavior that is described is the teacher organizes the class in such a way as to facilitate students working on complex tasks that require them to generate and test hypotheses. Which sounds really, big and like there's a test tube involved and you're going to generate a hypothesis on if you add, I don't know, baking soda to everything. Just therapy. Okay, what will happen next? But we've spent a lot of time so far asking the question, what exactly does that indicator really even mean? And what it can mean in different classrooms, because it's got to mean something different in an elementary education classroom than it does in a high school chemistry classroom. And so, very slowly, working with teachers to say, what would that look like when you're doing a read aloud in a third grade classroom? And a lot of it comes down to why or how, questions that involve you giving an explanation about very unspoken offering up a guess or they call it a hypothesis or a prediction, and being able to give some substance behind it. And so there are 3 indicators in here that all the little sisters, they all clump together, and they're about offering students opportunities to do this, grouping them in small groups in ways that would help them work with each other to kind of test out their ideas. And then just another way of engaging in that kind of work. So that's some of the stuff that's going on in that rubric. And those are the 2 big stories for tonight. There's not a lot more going on the elementary front right now. We've got the grandparents breakfast coming up next week. And I feel like we just saw each other, so we had a Skyline meeting. And that's about it for now.
What are the dates of those?
For the grandparents, Tuesday of next week.
5th and 7th.
Wednesday, or Thursday? So
Tuesday
5th
and Thursday.
and Thursday, yeah.
Which grades?
K2 is the 5th.
Yeah,
Fifth, and the other one's in the seventh.
yeah.
And if you want to, you can go to both, or you can just write on there which, if you want to just go to one, have all your kids come to one.
And what time does the service start? Starts
Surveys, what time?
So you can start serving at 4:15.
at
Because upstairs cafeteria is going to be open automatically just for grandparents' breakfast, because we don't use it any longer for breakfast. Maybe if you want to talk about your challenge.
Of course I do. So we held Challenge Day. I feel like it was quite successful. We did have, I don't want to say a high percentage, but the first day, which was Tuesday, the 9th and 10th grade, we certainly experienced a drop in attendance that day. For some of those students, I think thinking that they're just going to opt out. And in the future, I certainly hope that will change if we decided to host it again. The following day, certainly with the younger group, and I'm going to imagine from the great response of the older students that did attend, we had a much better attendance rate that next day. You'll see in the newsletter a little article, about Challenge Day, and I asked students, again, they can give me whatever comment they wanted, whether it was negative or positive, but all of the students that I asked, and I didn't go hand select people, I just went to classrooms and said, please write comments. I put them in the newsletter. They were all positive. Probably the most common comment that I heard, not necessarily just in the written form, but verbally, was, oh, this was so much fun. I want to do this again next year. We should do this every year. So I felt like a majority, definitely, students had a great experience. I think the staff had a great experience. And despite the weather on, the first day, it worked. It worked itself out, so that was great.
I heard a lot of positive things about that day too, so nice job.
Again, it was really just a matter of Sue had, pretty much decided the school was going to host it, and then I just had to make the organization's part of it work for that day, so. Just pull that boat together. So it was,
All those volunteers.
and really honestly, the presenters that were there were fabulous. Obviously well-trained, and, have done this day in and day out, and managed, I think, a lot of maybe the touchier situations that may have developed. They just made the day wonderful, really, for.
I got a nice little note when I got home that night.
Did you?
So we know, well, we assume it's his wife that wrote to him.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, did I know that they all wrote?
Yes, yes, that's right.
That was
Good.
good. Appreciate
Yes.
it.
So I thought it was a great experience. Certainly would support us having it again. Not this year probably, obviously. Maybe in the future, sometime. I'm not sure that this same group of students would necessarily need it, but I think as this group maybe progresses through, once we have another opportunity to bring them in with a fresh group, I think that would be great.
Is that the age range normally approached, Amy, or do they sometimes go for 11, 12 also?
Pretty much it's a high school program, and again, I didn't ask them what their middle school, but I think they probably also do have another component where you could pick like a 5th, 6th, but when we were speaking with the coordinator, she said, it's really pretty much up to you, whatever grade levels you want to target. And certainly, as far as from an anti-bullying perspective, that age level would be the targeted age for the 7th, 8th graders, and then the 9th and 10th.
It was very nice.
You know, in hindsight, and we said this after, had we thought, we could have done 8, 9, 10, 11, and then next year done 7, 8.
Oh,
But
yeah.
again, hindsight, you know, as always,
Yeah.
because, but there is a day 2, which is different than, obviously, so it's something to think about, but it is an expensive program,
Oh, yeah.
and that's another, you know, cost factor.
Well, I think it was nice that you got as many as you did. I think it was a huge benefit for all those kids that were there, and yeah, I think it was good to reach those young ones, I think.
And
I heard nothing but good about it. It was really good.
Terry and I put a letter together on behalf of the board, and Terry signed, to send to all the staff that participated, and not all of the staff participated. Some by choice, you know, because it was a very difficult day. You had to be willing to open up, you had to be willing to share, and some people weren't comfortable. So, but, you know, Amy deserves a lot too for getting volunteers and parents and some other people that got roped into it along the way. But it made it successful, so.
Was there a lot of physical activity, a lot of programs like that, or?
No, actually, a lot of the things that you did, kind of game-oriented, within a small circle, you know, rush across the circular area to find a new seat, you know, get ready, get set kind of thing, you know, it was, I mean, body temperature, I was warm because you're constantly moving for a lot of the activities in the beginning. But, you know, it really, any person could participate.
Linda wasn't too energetic when she got home.
I don't think she wasn't.
She was like, sit down, come sleep, you know.
Right.
Thanks, Amy.
I'll do a couple of things for high school in this, and actually I'm going to put the evaluation off to the end. Just to let everyone know, as of March 1st, the clinic will be closed. Our doctor has accepted, or our PA has accepted a position elsewhere, and she did so not knowing whether or not she would have a job here next year. So when she tried to talk to the hospital, she couldn't get anywhere and felt she needed to secure, obviously, a work for herself. I would guess more than likely we will probably not have a clinic for the remainder of the year. And we, as some of you probably remember, we were kind of on the chopping block last year and had them stay on for every other day. So I don't know if we'll have a clinic ever again unless we go a different avenue. Governor, who at one point was interested in us, they just closed theirs last week down in their school. And Canton, Potsdam, when we contacted them, they had kind of changed their mind. So unfortunately, for our students who deeply depend on that, it'll be a great loss. Because we have many students, that's their total primary care. We did our first intruder drill, and we had some points that we had to learn from and change some ways. That I think one of the best things that happened is that people took it really seriously. We didn't have people signing people out, we didn't have people leaving, we had people thinking in advance. We had to have a second faculty meeting before we could even have the intruder drill because people had come up with so many questions. So those were all real positives. And after the drill, we sat down, met, and wrote up a few more things that we had to change. We will be having the second intruder drill this week. And again, it's not announced, and this will encompass during a class change period. So it'll be more hectic of a time. And that's done intentionally. So.
How many intruder drills will we have?
Two. But we just decided to do one just kind of to practice it and get everybody together, and you know, especially for some of the younger students. But for the second one, we really wanted to do one during class exchange when people are out and around and up and about. So.
Are we including law enforcement for these drills or no?
No. One of the things at this point, they're completely overwhelmed, is what they had said. I am going to the gun intruder drill sometime in March. That they're, I don't know if you saw in the papers, they did it at Norwood School over at the break. They're having another one that they're doing in Bosse's building. So if you want to have one of those gun intruder drills at your school, you have to attend this session. So I'm going to the initial session to be able to be considered, and obviously Norwood got a free pass because they already got lucky enough to have somebody go into their school, and leave a gun with those, you know. So they got to have the first practice drill. But they said it was very beneficial. Chris already did the fire hall visits. The MOA, we did have another MOA done by the unions, and if you remember, I had said in order for us to be able to get all of our observations done, since Amy and I are the only, Amy Calamity and I are the only two certified administrators that can do it, or lead evaluators, the union did agree to cut down to 2 evaluations this year. And that means they'll either, if they're non-tenured, they'll have 2 formals. If they're somebody that's just having 1 formal this year, they could have 1 formal and one walkthrough, or they're gonna have 2 walkthroughs. Even in doing that, just to let everybody know I scheduled through till May 24th, and that's 3 to 4 a week. And usually I have them done by April 1st. So even with getting it cut, it's still immense. And how late, you were as late?
Yeah, mine went to the end of
Right. So just to let everybody know where we stood with that, but they did sign the MOA, so that was very helpful.
So what did you say about the non-tenured?
Non-tenured will have 2, both formals,
Both formals.
yes. And that was kind of how it was before. What they were supposed to get was 2 formals and 3 walkthroughs. There's just no way we can get 5 done. And we didn't start until Thanksgiving because of the whole process and signing the APPR, and so. Basically, we realigned the schedule. I will be doing all of the high school, and for the most part, Amy will be doing all of the elementary, unless it's someone that's not tenured. If they're in their first 3 years, they'll have one of their evaluations will be done by me. But for the high school, some of those poor people have to go with me. So that's how we kind of try to split it up. Becky?
Well, some good news, I guess, to start with. We got about $39,000 just shy of for technology vouchers. It's something from Microsoft. They had some sort of lawsuit, and so 87 million is available to your schools. We're only at 39,000. But it's funding that is to help transition to computer-based testing, overall integration of technology in the classroom. I think March 1st is when we can start to apply for it, so there'll be more in the next few days about what we can use it for. But basically technology and like hardware and software. Also, I did the first preliminary draft of the tax cap. Looks to be about 7.6% we can increase due to 26,000 of carryover from last year, since we didn't increase the taxes at all. Also, due to the TRS jumping so dramatically, it's a 4.2% increase, I believe. So that's $95,000 that we can increase based on, they allow anything over 2%. So that's 2.2% that we can increase our taxes by next year to help cover that, if we so choose to do so. Now this is just a preliminary, so there needs to be some more introductions or anything that I haven't gotten information on. So I'll have that, the final for you for next meeting. Also, I know Mandy questioned about the sequestration with the fiscal cliff looming again. I did get this just before the meeting, so I'm not quite sure how accurate it is, but it's from the New York State business officials. It looks like we would stand to lose about $20,000, which I guess is less than what I was worried about. Now, I'm not quite sure exactly if that's just part of the grant, so that encompasses everything. So I will find out more, and hopefully we won't have to deal with that.
How does that work? If they start that, is that a given at that point, or if they start that and make an agreement a week later?
I think they can make an agreement to change it. They're the government, so I'm sure they can do anything they want.
I was just wondering if, like, okay, midnight, if they haven't made an agreement, we lost 20,000, or if it's down the road a week or two.
I believe they can always change it. I'm really hoping that they'll come in last minute again and, the 11th hour and say that, it's just, everything I've read, it's just not, a lot of people don't support it. It's not fair cutting programs that aren't necessary, the same as cutting programs that are necessary. And that's a lot of what the government, the representatives are saying, but no one has yet to have made any moves.
This is the article in the Watertown paper on some group, and I just saw the headlines of it, some group had taken the state court over
Oh, yeah, the teachers union or the tax.
teachers union with it, on the 2%.
Yeah, because, well, I mean, for them, they're losing jobs. You know, if we can't raise taxes, we have to cut jobs. If we can't raise, get funds from the government, we're gonna have to cut jobs.
Yeah, and the teachers in New York City are suing for the money.
I think in New York State, I'm not sure
Which
which
is New York
union,
State,
New York
right?
State union.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was NICEAD or.
For the city.
They're funded on the internet, they don't want it.
So, obviously, they're trying to protect teachers.
That wouldn't have any bearing on this year's budget or anything.
No, and the thing is, even if there is no tax cap, you still have to get your budget voted. So, I mean, just because we can legally raise it by 7% doesn't mean we're going to, because that's not always a smart move to do that much. You do what's necessary sometimes.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to this, I was trying to let her before I word everybody was that. You could open up your evaluation instrument, and I think it's kind of important to see this, because when Amy and I go into a classroom, we have in front of us, well, this one page. On the one page, it says domain 1, and there's 41 different things that we're looking to see, is that happening when we go in? Now, one of the things you have to consider to yourself is, are we going in for 15 minutes, or are we going in for a whole period? Because obviously that makes a huge difference in what you actually see or not see. I guess what I wanted you to see after seeing this breakdown is the immensity of how Marzano then breaks down each one of those elements into a separate rubric. And that's what Amy and I then have to judge the criteria on what we see. When we go in and do, and pop it in here, Amy, think of anything. When we go in to do an evaluation, I know that I'm handwriting everything that's said and done. I think you're typing. And if the teacher says, okay, everybody get up, do this, I write down exactly, then I write, 6 children did it, 2 children didn't, and trying to keep all the data, statistics, so that when you go back, you can give everything that you saw, you heard, and what was going on in the classroom. And I think it really cuts out opinion, because it's all fact-based, which is kind of what they were trying to have happen with more of these observations. I think rather than trying to explain all these 41 elements to you, what I'd like everyone to do for a little homework assignment, if you're interested, is to look them over and see if there's particular ones that you don't understand. Because throughout the lesson, and this is all we're looking at, it's not the teacher's planning, it's not what happened before or after you came in the classroom, this is just the time that we're in the classroom, of the different things that we should or expect to see.
45 pages.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's repetition.
Yeah.
It does become, but also for me, like for domain 1, some of my observations have been 16 pages. Because you're going through, I might have picked 20, 25 of these. It was kind of interesting, because some of the teachers said, well, you'll never find any of this stuff in my classroom. And I think they were shocked at how much I did come across and find, and how they're using so much of it. The important thing is, I think, under lesson segment, there's 5 things. And even it's very clearly said to the staff, expect that when we come in, we will always be looking for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if you don't have that, you will get not using, which is the lowest score possible. So if you want to look that over, and I know it was a lot to look at, but I have to go through different areas or to go through it full of people who want. So I don't want to waste everyone's time if you really don't want to go through it, because it's very involved. But if you come up with specific questions, maybe we can just answer those.
When you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you mean section 1, project career learning goals?
If you look at that page,
Yeah.
the first page, and it says DQ1, communicating learning goals and feedback, and then you see 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
then underneath it you see 4 and 5. Those are the 5 things that we're definitely going to look for every single time you come into a room. And if you're not doing it, you're going to get not using, which is an extremely negative impact on your score. And staff has been told that since the beginning. Some of the others, if you find 6 through 41, some of them, you may not find all of them. You may find more in some people's than others. But they know that we're definitely going to look for 1 through 5, and that's something that they're really pushing, that people need to make as a routine in their teaching.
What this was today, I thought it was very interesting. When you say it takes you 4 hours or whatever to do one of these things, you really automatically just wonder, what takes 4 hours to do this? So why are you really looking for all these things? And not even the information you just give us on that 1 through 5 thing. And it also makes you realize what the teachers are doing. So no wonder there's a lot of stress. This is a very large change, you know, and I thought it was very helpful.
And, I mean, obviously, the more we do it, the better we will get at it. It'll probably take less time, but I still don't see it ever being for a formal, under 3 hours. I don't really do. I mean, just the amount of information you're typing in, well, you type yours the first round, I do on the second. But, I mean, you want to give every fact that you can. And I always say to people, if there's anything I missed, tell me. I'll put it in there. Because our first, when we meet with people, it is a draft. That's not their final when we first meet.
Do they have input into it?
Yes. And there's also a whole, if you notice on these forms, there's a whole student interview section. And I use that heavily in mind to bring students from whatever classroom after the fact down to my office and speak to them about all the different things. Because it says when asked. You can't just have a child in the room and see them do it. You have to ask them, why did you do that? What does that mean? And explain it to you and make sure they can explain it. And that's a whole new part for some people.
Do they even remember what you're talking about when you get them?
It's amazing, yes.
Do they?
And I've been shocked by how many kids are so positive about it and say really nice things. And when I've been writing them and people read it, they're like, wow. I mean, over break, I called 4 kids because the observations I did, the kids had left school and I wanted to finish my observations. So it's kind of funny when I'm talking to them on the phone in their houses, you know, that I wanted to finish. So, but look those over and if you have questions. Go more in depth.
So the student actually has learning goals?
And many can tell you, even at young ages, as low as 2nd grade, what their goal is for the activity, you know, how it's rated, what the teacher's looking for. It's surprising.
SLOs that everybody's been talking
No.
about?
Well, sorry. No, those are learning goals. Teachers have their own SLOs and LLOs.
Okay,
Those
SLOs
shared
are
with
for the
students.
teachers, no, okay.
Oh, there's so much, and all the acronyms are just crazy. That's it.
Okay. I guess that's it for now. Yeah, I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss pending or current litigation, collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, and medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person, or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And we have no CSE tonight. Andy?
Second.
Rick? All in favor? Any opposed? For an executive session at 7:08.